Welcome to Behaviorally Speaking, Leadership for Change Makers, the podcast where leadership meets behavior science and where educators, clinicians, and humans grow. I'm your host, Dr. Esther Bubb, and every week we'll explore the small, powerful behaviors that strengthen teams, inspire people, and create meaningful change. Whether you're leading a classroom, a team, a family, or simply leading yourself, this show is for you. Let's grow together, one intentional behavior at a time. Today, we're diving into a topic at the heart of effective, compassionate leadership: reinforcement, recognition, and the art of leading with positivity without slipping into toxic positivity. We'll explore what genuine reinforcement looks like, how recognition strengthens teams and relationships, and how leaders can hold space for hard emotions while still offering hope. And today, I'm honored to be joined by a leader whose lived experience, compassion, and clarity of purpose inspires so many. Tyrrea L is the innovative owner and Chief Executive Officer of Autistic Angels Behavioral Health. She is a board-certified behavior analyst and licensed behavior specialist with a special education director certification from the University of Delaware. With more than 20 years of experience across clinical and educational settings, Tyrrea has dedicated her career to supporting children and adults with developmental, emotional, behavioral, and intellectual disabilities throughout Delaware and Pennsylvania. Tyrrea, I'm so grateful you're here. I thank you so much for joining. But before we go ahead.
Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome. I thank you for your time. Before we dive into today's topic, I'd love for listeners to get to know the heart behind your work. So can you take a moment just to share a bit about your story, Tyrrea, and then what inspired you to create Autistic Angels?
Okay, sure. So I have about 15 to 20 years of experience working in the human services field. I have been doing behavior specialist work, mobile therapy, and then I came across a young lady who looked at my background and she said that I was really interested in becoming a BCBA. So I took her advice and enrolled in the school, went to St. Joe's University for the postmaster certification for applied behavior analysis, graduated, took my exam, and then start working as a BCBA, which led me to being a BCBA and in like the clinical setting, and then also providing some consultation to schools. So then around 2017, I was presented with an opportunity. I always kind of had an entrepreneur spirit. My dad always emphasized being an entrepreneur gave you the freedom to move about and be creative. So I was presented with an opportunity in 2017 to provide behavioral support for adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities. Well, I thought this was great because since it was like a lot of limited services for adults, so I thought it would be a perfect opportunity for me to turn my entrepreneur spirit into something that would make a huge impact, and that's when I started Autistic Angels.
Wonderful. So what I heard you say, Tyrrea, we're talking about reinforcement and recognition tonight. And from everything you said, I heard you share that someone recognized, the abilities you had, talked to you about the program, and you enrolled in school, and the rest is history, right? So what I admire about your journey and everything you just shared, it's really how it's rooted in, dignity for yourself. The other person that, gave you that dignity, advocacy, honoring you as a person and honoring your skills and abilities, and in everything that you do and from our interactions, the fact that you honor every child's humanity, the humanity of every person you interact with. And, your goal really, in my opinion, is to just continue to reinforce and recognize abilities and skills in people and, encourage them to move forward. So that shines through not only in you, but also in your organization, Tyrrea, and how you lead, as a professional.
Mm-hmm.
So again, thank you for sharing your brief background. So one of the core themes of this podcast, Tyrrea, is that leadership is behavior, right? And as behavior analysts,
Mm-hmm.
we're all about behavior, right?
Exactly.
So that leadership is behavior. It's observable. It's measurable, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's those teachable, repeatable actions. And we know as behavior analysts that reinforcement, it really sits at the center of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So from your lens, Tyrrea, from your lens in your professional experience, then also in your work with autistic angels, right, and with families, what does meaningful, authentic reinforcement of positive staff behaviors, but also positive leadership behaviors look like to you in real life?
Funny. It's interesting you should say that. So, as a leader, I model positive interactions among my staff, among colleagues that I'm working with. And when I'm doing professional developments and training, I always say a joke, start off with a joke. What we do know is ABA principles is used throughout everyday life. It's like a universal design learning. Just like you have like universal signs in the community, everybody recognizes the stop sign,
Right.
the bathroom sign, the hospital sign. Everyone recognizes these signs. And what I try to tell people is that ABA can be used throughout your daily routine. I'd say I use it with my husband, my son, and my dog.
Right. Yeah.
you know,
Absolutely.
we focus a lot on, as behavior analysts, we do focus a lot. So I try to utilize what I practice in my professional development as well as in my personal development. And then when it comes to leadership, just like we write behavior support plans for students and adults, I utilize those same proactive strategies when I interact with my staff. Everybody wants to feel valued. Everybody wants to feel like they are, given empathy, compassion, provided with dignity. So
Right.
utilizing those ABA practices, it gives me an opportunity to honor individual effort and growth by acknowledging when they do well, offering public behavior-specific praise for their hard work, or just simply expressing appreciation through like small gestures that resonate with them. Like finding out what do they like, what do they enjoy, and like in ABA terms, what are their reinforcers that's going to motivate them to continue their productivity on a more consistent basis.
Yeah. I love all of that, Tyrrea. I heard words like model, like acknowledge, right? And what's going to motivate and reinforce them. I really love that. And in ABA, applied behavior analysis, we talk about reinforcement as anything that increases the likelihood of a behavior occurring again. So like all of those examples you gave increases the likelihood not only of the staff continuing to engage in those behaviors, but them continuing to return to work, right? And continuing to return to the job, right?
Exactly.
And with, all of the staffing shortages and all of those things going on now, we want to make sure we're reinforcing our staff and we're supporting them so they continue to return to work. So in leadership and human services, reinforcement is also deeply relational. And you talked about that a lot in what you said. So things like you said acknowledging, which means you would first have to notice, right? Whatever it is you acknowledge. So noticing the effort, right? They may not necessarily be yet where we want them to be. So whether it's the staff or the students, but they're making that effort, we're going to reinforce it. We're going to acknowledge it, right? Honoring their strengths. Everybody's good at something different. So somebody's good at decorating, they're good at cleaning, whatever it is, honoring those things and finding more opportunities for them to engage in those behaviors. Exactly. But Terry, I think another important thing is really respecting their autonomy, right? So like their self-governance, their freedom to make their own choices. So, okay, we give them a task to do, but whether they choose to use Word or PowerPoint, like, you know what I'm saying? So
exactly.
They're working on the task and they're getting there. And then the big thing for me, Tyrrea, that I really lean in on is reinforcing progress. And I talk about this daily with staff. It's not perfection for me, Tyrrea, right? It's just baby steps, right? Looking at that graph and we're going up and we're going up and we're getting there. So progress over perfection. So Tyrrea, can you share a moment where you reinforce the behavior of a child or a family or team member or someone in your family even, and that specific reinforcement really created like a behavioral shift or breakthrough for that person?
Let me just say, I'm trying to think in terms of, I can use a case. So I was working with a client. What is interesting is when I first started working with this family, mom and dad were not on the same page.
Okay.
It was a male. I think at that time he was in the third grade.
Okay.
And he was diagnosed with autism, but back then it was considered Asperger's. So he would do a lot of things, and dad looked at it as him being disrespectful. So of course, he wanted to instill some type of punishment. And what I was trying to convey to dad is if we just kind of focus on and trying to explain to him how his son processed information differently. And then explaining that and providing some type of reinforcement system in the home, and then even showing that, visualize it and demonstrating the child's growth, and then even showing that with dad caused a really behavioral shift in the child, because his relationship with his dad changed, and also with the dad because he was able to reflect on his child's growth and then start to understand the child's learning process, the child's style, and then change his mindset of looking at the way he relates to his son. So to me, that was a true breakthrough, because mom would literally talk to me and be in tears because she was like, she felt torn in the middle of them two, where she didn't have the knowledge or the terminology to be able to break it down to explain to her husband what she knew about her son. Meaning in terms of he's not being disrespectful, he's just being who he is, and that's the way he processed information. So setting up that like reinforcement system for the son, and discussing and acknowledging his growth. Again, like you said, it's not about perfection, but his growth. Even with, I tell in an education setting, as well as in a clinical setting, sometimes I tell parents, the behaviors may not go away. Right. But what we want to do is look at the intensity and the duration. To see if there's growth there. So
because that's progress, right?
Yes,
it's
absolutely.
Not the perfection of it going fully away, but it's progress. It's it's better than when we started. So thank you so much for those meaningful examples. And then from the examples you shared, it's just, to me, was the impact I heard was my takeaway. Like, so not only for the child, but the dad, right? The parents, like they were also impacted. So on that trend of thought, I also want to highlight something that I think it's important is that reinforcement area flows in every direction, right? So it's bidirectional, So like, for example, supervisors reinforce staff, but staff also reinforce supervisors, right? Supervisors reinforce others in leadership positions, and colleagues reinforce one another. So, Tyrrea, I can think of, and I'm sure you can think of too, and you'll have an opportunity to share, but several staff, colleagues, supervisors, and administrators who have reinforced my leadership behaviors in so many ways that keeps me going, right? Keeps that momentum going. So feedback like, we are so thankful for you teaching us so many things, or we are learning every day. Or just walking into my office door decorated, right? Like, because they appreciate the leadership behaviors I'm engaging in, like reinforces my leadership behaviors and motivates me to keep going. So I think it's important that, all right, so we know about reinforcement and we reinforce our staff, but like helping them learn, like the importance of, the bidirectionality of it. So can you, Tyrrea, share an example of a time when your leadership behaviors were reinforced by a staff member, a colleague, or a supervisor, and it really gave you that motivation to keep going?
What is interesting? Funny you should ask that question.
Okay.
I actually just started in a new district.
Okay.
Yes. So the purpose of me starting in a new district, when I came, there was no process, and structure, and foundation. So here you have me coming in with building this whole new system. Okay. And of course I was met with resistance. Oh, we don't do that. Or we didn't do that. Or, and helping them to expand their knowledge and stretching them. So of course I was met with resistance. Yeah. And it was frustrating. But what I did was I watched the room. Okay. And what is important as a leader is to know your personnel. Yeah. Who are the influencers in the room? 100%. So when I found out who the influencers in the room was, you know what I did? Oh, you know what, ladies? Let's go have lunch.
Yeah.
Let's go have lunch. And during that lunch, we laugh and joke, and I,
Yeah.
ask
Yeah.
them about personal, tell me about your
Yeah.
family and what do you
Yeah.
like and all of that. Then
Yeah.
after that, after I provided with that compassion and
Yeah.
start to build that relationship with them, and then explain to them, what is it, even ask them a question. What is it that you want,
Right.
that you lack, that you want in a leader?
Yeah.
So they named a few things. And those particular things that they named, I can do that, and this is how I want to do that.
Hmm.
This is my vision. This is where we are right now, and this is where I want us to go.
Yeah.
And getting their buy-in.
Hmm.
Once I got their buy-in, then it was like, oh my gosh, we thank you so much. We're glad you're here. So then when I go to PLCs or professional learning centers for our particular group,
Yeah.
when you have the naysayers there, I have the influencers there
Yeah.
supporting me.
Right.
Oh, she's doing this for this. I don't even have to do as much talking anymore.
There you go. Yeah. Wonderful. Wonderful.
So they basically they're reinforcing every day, reinforcing my vision
Hmm.
amongst their peers,
Yeah.
bringing them along so we can all reach that destination.
Yeah. Yeah, I really love that example, Tara. It's so powerful and it's loaded with so many things that we can take away from it, right? And I think it really speaks to something, Tara, that leaders across any setting really needs to remember. People don't grow from pressure. So imagine if you went in and just started pressuring, oh, we need to do this, we need to do this, we need to do that. They really grow from being seen. And the fact that you
Mhm.
said, let's go have lunch shows that you saw them, right?
Mhm.
You saw something that needs to work on, but most of all, you saw them. They really grew from being seen. So that was such a powerful example. I really appreciate sharing that. And then, you mentioned the word vision. And, I am a firm believer in someone's vision is the greatest asset you will ever have because
Mhm.
you know where you're going, you know where you need to go, right? And you're
Mhm.
going to do the things you need to do to get there. And as long as you stay focused on that vision, right?
Mhm.
So for me, I always use this quote, that someone's vision is the greatest asset they'll ever have. So, Tyrrea, I want to shift into a part of the conversation that really doesn't often get talked about. We
Mhm.
hear a lot in leadership about positivity. We hear about mindset. We hear about optimism, right? And yes, those things matter, right? For being
Mhm.
honest, but depending on how they're expressed, they can really cross into toxic positivity, right? And toxic positivity is that insistence of maintaining a positive mindset. There's nothing wrong with maintaining a positive mindset, Terry, and I think you'll agree. But to do it to such an extreme or such an extent that it promotes optimism while simultaneously dismissing or denying
Mhm.
or invalidating, real emotions and lived experiences, right? We work in a
Mhm.
field where we experience so many things on a daily basis, right? So while we want to promote positivity, we have to acknowledge that, we are going to experience some negative encounters. So
Mhm.
essentially, to me, it's like over promoting positivity, right? Or like in ABA terms, Sarah, we would call that overgeneralization of
Yeah,
positivity,
yes,
right?
exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. So like we're doing all of that, but dismissing these experiences that our staff are having and our students and our families. And to me, Tyrrea, it really crosses into the realm of harm and then increases the risk of us as leaders violating our ethical responsibility to do good and do no harm. So how would you describe this toxic positivity, Terry? Like, especially in education, behavior analysis, or like human services. Have you seen it? Have you experienced it? Just talk to me about your thoughts on it.
So, on Tuesday,
Mm-hmm.
how would I describe it? Basically, it is when leaders, like, perfect example, use overgeneralized statements
Yeah.
with the positive stuff. And I think using such statements kind of minimizes the staff struggle.
Yeah.
It
True. True.
discourages like honest conversation,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like it's blaming the individual instead of addressing like systemic issues. And
Yeah.
here's an example.
Okay.
So we got called to a school because there were such behavior issues.
Mm-hmm.
So I go to a school and I talk to the principal, and I'm looking at there's kids that have we could say there was 5, I call it frequent flyers,
Okay. I got you.
wreaking havoc in the building.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's upset. And the principal wants them out. So I go and I explain, let me see data. So they come and they, give me the data. What is interesting is I'm analyzing the data. There's 3 different people and they're collecting 3 different types of data. And the data is
Mm-hmm.
not even valid.
Mm-hmm.
They're not even
Okay.
collecting the data that they're supposed to be collecting.
Mm-hmm.
So she's frustrated. And I said to her, I get your frustration. Supplying that empathy, understanding her struggle,
Yeah.
not minimizing it.
Right.
Not just saying, oh, this is where we are in education today.
Right.
Oh,
Right.
this is where kids are. I literally said, I get your frustration. And I
Mm-hmm.
paused.
Right. Okay.
And then I said, I understand fully how you are upset. But in order to get what you want, in order to fix this issue, I'm going to walk your team through the steps. I didn't just say, here, you need to do this, this, and this. I'm going to I'm in the trenches
Yeah.
with your team.
Right.
And I noticed she fell back and her shoulders dropped. Her defense wall came down,
Yeah.
and it made her feel a little bit better. Simply because I didn't say, oh, well, you got to stay positive. Oh, well, you got to do this. And, oh, you got to do this.
Right.
I actually said to her, there's something that needs to be fixed. There's nobody's blame. We're not going to point fingers and blame anyone. However, we're going to address this systemic issue, and I'm going to help the team fix it.
Yeah.
So,
Wonderful.
yeah. And I think that made more of an impact with her instead of, emphasizing or just constantly trying to do the toxic positivity or,
Right.
come on, we got, you got to do this, you got to keep up the good work or all of that. Yeah. It
Yeah.
becomes annoying.
It absolutely. Yes. Yes.
It becomes annoying.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And so like, as you're saying, toxic positivity is that the good vibes only, just stay positive, everything happens for a reason kind of approach, like, and that unintentionally or intentionally dismisses people's very real emotions. So you recognize the emotions that the staff member was experiencing, and then you said then she let her guard down, right? Her shoulders went down. Her lived experiences on a daily basis, right? In her work setting, and the barriers that she was faced with, right? So instead of dismissing all of those things, you acknowledge them, you recognize them. You said, yeah, these are actually happening, but here's how I can help, right? So it's okay to promote the positive vibes. I think you did both in that moment, but then it's also not okay to do so while dismissing the negative experiences. You promoted positivity, but you still acknowledged, right, those experiences. And it's really important to do that when we interact with those that we lead and those that we mentor, because it's not only that we're supervising them, but we're leading them and we're mentoring, and they're observing us and they're looking at us and they're learning from us, right? And
Absolutely.
it's also even more important, Tyrrea, that we do that when we are supporting neurodivergent learners and their families, right? Because false positivity or dismissing negative experiences can be so deeply invalidating. And that is the last thing we want to do. We should not be doing it. And again, ethically speaking, our goal and our mission should always be to do good and do no harm, right? So how do you, Tyrrea, stay grounded and compassionate, right? So that, because you used the word compassionate a number of times tonight, right? So how do you do that? How do you offer hope, like in that instance? Like what have some of the experiences that led you in that moment to offer her hope without minimizing the hard moments that she was experiencing, the difficult time she was having, right? How do you do that for those that you support?
I would say first by just listening.
Okay.
Listen. Be an active listener. Validate their emotions. Like the previous example I said, I understand your frustration. Validating your emotions and being fully present without trying to rush to fix it. Rush to fix, let them get it all out. Let them express their, what's going on. Let them validate their pain. And then with that, I try to stay grounded by leading with integrity, honesty, empathy, and just being consistent.
Right.
People look for consistency. So many times, especially in this new position, one of the things that they complain about is the inconsistency.
Right.
So I want to demonstrate the consistency in order for them to understand, that I'm in it with them. I am remaining loyal and understanding their plight,
Yeah.
and making sure that we all, get to the finish line. Nobody
Yeah.
likes a bunch of changes.
Right.
And then, being consistent increases your credibility with your
Right.
staff. So,
100%. Yeah. Yeah. I really love that idea, Tyrrea, and it really shows your authenticity in your leadership style, right? And when leaders such as yourself hold space for the truth, right, as you did in that instance, people, Tyrrea, feel safer. They feel more
hmm
supported. They trust you. And
hmm
when you put all of those things together, Tyrrea, it really impacts their growth. And you talked about, your goal is really for people to grow. So that was really an authentic, honest example of that. And I'm thankful for you and, the leadership you offer to those you support daily. So I want to, at this moment, Tyrrea, tap into one of my favorite leadership books. It's called The Fred Factor. It was written by Mark Sanborn, and it really centers on the extraordinary power of small intentional acts. So those acts that some people might dismiss or say, oh, that's not that great of a job or whatnot.
hmm
Those small intentional acts have great strength. And so this book is actually a required text in one of my graduate courses I teach. So I get to talk about it all the time. And that course is called Leadership Current Issues and the Teacher as Agent of Change, right? So in the
hmm
Fred Factor, Sanborn shares the story. It's a true story of a Fred. He was a mail carrier. He loved his job so much and he genuinely cared about the people he served. So while some people might view the role of the mail carrier as ordinary, Fred saw
hmm
his job every single day as an opportunity to make a difference in the lives of those he delivered mail to. And,
hmm
the book kind of reminds me, Terry, years ago in my neighborhood, the mail carrier always carried dog treats, right? Every day. And he would ask all the neighbors, who had dogs, even give their dogs a treat. And that small act, Terry, in his role as a mail carrier, created such lasting joy. And to this day, I still remember it vividly.
hmm
In the book, the foundational premise of the Fred Factor, Terry, is that passion in your work and
hmm
passion in your life can turn the ordinary into the extraordinary. And he created an acronym using the name Fred, right? And he paired each letter with an inspiring quote. So for F, he used the word find. So here's the quote. There is something much more scarce, something finer by far, something rarer than ability. And that thing, Tyrrea, is the ability to recognize ability. So we have ability, but it's that ability to recognize it in others. And this quote was from Albert Hubbard, right? Then
hmm
Sanborn used the word reward for the letter R. He said, no one can become rich without enriching others. I really love this one. No one can
hmm
become rich without enriching others. This one was by Andrew Carnegie. And then for the letter E in Fred, he used the word educate. So he shared the quote, the brighter you are, the more you have to learn. I mean, let's think about it, Tyrrea. The brighter you are, the more you have to learn. And this was a quote by Don Harold. But I would like to add, Tyrrea, the brighter you
hmm
are, the more you have to learn and the more you have to teach, right?
Yes.
The
Yes.
more that responsibility to share your knowledge increases. And then for the D, he used the word demonstrate. And he
hmm
said, I really like this one, Tyrrea. You can preach a better sermon with your life than with your lips. You can
Oh,
preach
absolutely.
I love that, right? A better sermon with your life than with your lips. And this one was by Oliver Goldsmith. So, Tara, in my opinion, you model these Fred-like behaviors every day. So finding talent, rewarding talent, educating those you work with, and demonstrating leadership, demonstrating, how to serve people, right? So
hmm
can you share a story, Tyrrea, of where just a simple action, right? It could have been planned or unplanned, made a really great impact, a great lasting impact, a meaningful impact area on like a child or a parent or someone on your team?
Sure. Let me see. working with Working in a high school,
Okay.
there was a male student who was demonstrating a lot of behaviors. And I spent days and months working and talking with this student. Because I'm a big thing on behavior is a form of communication, right?
Yeah.
Behavior is just the tip of the iceberg that's sticking out of the water.
Yeah.
The big part is what's under the water.
Mm-hmm.
So I spend a lot of time getting to know people and getting to know their core and what is driving the behavior. We
Mm-hmm.
do have those functions of behavior, which is, the seat, the
Right.
sensory, escape, attention, and tangible.
Right.
But all knowing that's observable, measurable. But what we want to look at also too is what's going on cognitively or on in the inside with the emotions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um, I work with this student a lot, and he was very appreciative. And then one day he asked me a question: "How did you become a BCBA?
Mm-hmm.
Why did you become a BCBA?" And I told him. And when I tell you, he said something to me, and the next thing he said to me brought tears to my eyes.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
I want to do for someone what you have done to me.
Oh, wow. Wow.
And
That's,
he's right now um, studying to become an RBT.
mm,
And I was just like, oh my gosh, I didn't
yeah.
even realize, the impact. And he was just like, he had to go to alternative school, and he came back, and he was just like, I just want to save a kid the way you saved me.
Oh,
And I was just
that's
like,
profound.
oh my
Yeah.
gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh.
You
I
gotta
had to
keep
get
it
myself
together. You gotta keep it
together.
together.
Of course, I left that classroom. I went in the bathroom.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my,
you know,
yeah.
it just came. I was just like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
I didn't even realize. And then even teaching college courses and um, some of the students and sharing some of the stories with them. A lot of them start taking an interest in becoming, behavior specialists or behavior
Yeah.
analysts, and
Yeah.
was, started to look into it as well. So,
Yeah.
um, it's you don't even realize that you're making such
Yeah.
an impact.
Hmm. Yeah. That's such a meaningful story. Thank you for sharing that. I mean, that this is why we return every day. This is why we do what we do, right?
Yeah.
And what I'm hearing from you in just in that story is that leadership is not about titles, Sarah. It really isn't, right? It's about repeatable actions. And then the fact that someone else wants to repeat your actions, right? So now it's
Mhm.
really expanding and it's growing and it's spreading. And it really, leadership is really about what we reinforce, what we model. So he saw in you some things that he then wants to emulate. He wants to repeat. He wants to imitate. You've modeled. But it's also, Tyrrea, I think for me, the most important, it's how we show up for people day after day after day, right? So yes, the reinforcement is great, but stepping in, as you
Mhm.
said, jumping in the classroom, supporting, understanding, showing up for them, showing
Mhm.
up with someone is a little different than really showing up for them, right?
Mhm.
So that to me, it's really at the crux of leadership, like engaging in all of those behaviors, but why are we doing it? What's our vision, right? What's our mission? What's our why? And what do we want to see change? What do we want to see happen as an outcome of all of the support we're offering to the staff and those that we interact with. So as we wrap up, Tyrrea, I want to ask the question, right? What are
Mhm.
3 practical strategies that you can offer listeners that even as early as tomorrow, that they can implement to lead Tyrrea with hope, to lead with honesty, and to lead with humanity, as you exemplified in some of the examples that you shared tonight?
The first I would say, lead with integrity.
Okay. Integrity.
Say what you mean and mean what you say.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
Um, because again, it goes back to making an impact. People are watching. You
Yeah.
need to. The second thing I would say, model the expected behavior. Again, going back to ABA, model the expected behavior. Be
Yeah.
the example that you want your team to be. Treat others like you want to be treated.
Yeah.
Provide them with that empathy, the consistency, and being supportive.
Yeah.
We go, Dr. Maya Angelou.
Yeah.
People will always remember
True.
how you make them feel,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Um, and then the third thing I would say we discussed earlier is um, reflect on growth rather than perfection.
Yeah.
Acknowledge the small wins.
Yeah.
Again, when it comes to behavior, looking at the progress of the intensity and duration
Yeah.
has a decrease.
Yeah.
Um, Even with team players, you might not you might not have grasped everything, but just looking at the things that you did do. Okay, let's just look at the things that we did get right.
Right.
You know,
Right.
as a team, we're not going to always get it right. We're going to always sometimes fall short. So it's just looking at that as a learning opportunity, focus on what we did get right, and then what are the smaller things that we need to work on in order to move closer to the finish line.
Yeah.
But yeah, those are the three things that I would say: the integrity,
Yeah.
model the expected behavior, and then celebrate the small wins.
Wonderful. I love that. Integrity, model, and celebrate small wins. What a wonderful way to end our session tonight, Tyrrea. It was beautiful. Leadership doesn't require perfection, as you said. It requires intention, right? And your insights today truly embody that. I really thank you for sharing. Tyrrea, thank you again for sharing your wisdom, your heart, and your lived experience with us today. The work you do through Autistic Angels changes lives, and I'm so honored you joined me for this conversation. For listeners who want to stay connected with Tyrrea, learn more about Autistic Angels, or access resources for families and educators, visit theautisticangels.com. That is theautisticangels.com. And remember, leadership is not a title, it's a behavior. And every small action has the power to inspire change. So let's keep growing together, one intentional behavior at a time. And always remember, progress over perfection. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for joining me on Behaviorally Speaking, Leadership for Changemakers. If today's episode inspired you, share it with someone who leads, teaches, or influences others. Remember to follow the show and leave a review. It helps us reach more changemakers like you. Until next time, keep leading with clarity, compassion, and purpose.